Hey everybody, it's Taylor with Boydston Grove, and today we're going to make an American flag cross, but out of two different types of material. They may look identical, but there's a really big difference, and I'm going to show you what it is. Let's get into it. These American flag crosses have really taken off lately as people are batching them out to sell. So today I'm going to show you how to make them out of two different types of material so we can compare which one is the quickest, easiest, and most cost effective. I'm going to be using a piece of 1x2 select pine. It comes in a 6-foot length and is pre-sanded, so all I have to do is cut it down to length. Each cross takes two 12-inch pieces and 9 3-inch pieces. I had enough left over of the 1x2 to splice it down to make braces for the back of the cross. After all is said and done, I got one cross out of a $7.68 board with almost no scraps left over. I wanted to put a small chamfer on all the corners, and I chose to do this with my bench sander. You could also use an orbital sander or a router, but I stuck with the bench sander. Then it was time to scorch the surface of all the pieces. For years, I've been using the standard Bernzomatic attachment to my propane tanks to do these types of projects. And it's worked out just fine, but I've always had little issues with it sputtering and going in and out when I turn it on certain angles, and I always thought that it was burning out of gas way too fast. But the problem was actually the attachment itself. The other day, I went over to the local hardware store and I picked up the Bernzomatic Firepoint Creators tool, and this made a world of difference. This tool is really cool because it has the detached head that you can really get in there and do fine detail. It has the control right here for the size of the flame, and it really can do some nice detail work. And I like the fact that it keeps the tank separately, and it works a ton better than the standard attachment. Originally, this is one of my first tanks. I thought this was out of gas, but once I hooked it up to this, I managed to do all the crosses and the stars with just this one tank. So it was definitely worth the investment. Now, I'm not sponsored by Bernzomatic by any means, but I just got this and thought I would share it with you because I think it's really cool. Once I had all the pieces looking how I wanted them, it was time to move on to paint. A lot of people like to use stain for this project, but I found that a very light coat of paint works just as well and it dries much faster. Remember to avoid getting paint on the areas that will be glued together. I chose to use Titebond's Quick and Thick for the assembly because it dries clear, and that way I don't have to worry so much about squeeze out. Assembly was pretty straightforward. Once I had the pieces glued and tightly clamped together, I added the back braces using glue and pin nails. When you're working on the stars for these projects, there's a couple different techniques that seem to be really popular, one of which is to get a template offline and then trace the stars onto the area and carve them out with a Dremel tool. I just printed a template out on a thicker piece of paper to use, but this is not the technique I'm going with because I really don't have the patience or the time to sit there and Dremel out each individual star. Plus, you have the issue with some materials. When you hit those grain patterns that are thicker than others, it can tend to make that bit wander a little bit, and I really just want the stars to look nice and clean. If you have a CNC, you can also use this to cut out your stars. You just pretend like this area is a complete square, and then you create an SVG file with the stars in just this L-shaped area, load it into your program, and then you can have it just cut out this area. This can give your stars a much cleaner look than the Dremel, but it still takes all that time and energy to set up for each individual cross. The third option is what I'm going to be going with, which is just to purchase a bag of pre-cut stars offline. I'll make sure to leave a link to the stars that I purchased down below. These stars are thin enough that you can trim them with a knife if you need to. I attached a small D-ring hanger to hang the cross from. I'll leave a link to the ones I used in the description below. And that completes cross number 1. For the second cross, I used a cedar fence picket. I started by ripping it down to 1.5 inch strips and then cutting them to length. These pickets have a really rough surface, so if you don't have a planer like me, be prepared for some sanding. I found the router works the best to put a nice clean chamfer on the cedar. The cedar burns much easier than the pine, so I had to be really careful and not get carried away. The assembly for the cedar cross was exactly the same as the pine cross. Alright, our American flag crosses are finished. As you can see, I batched out a number of them, and at a first glance, you can't really tell the difference between the pine and the cedar. If you get up close, you can see the difference with the cedar because I didn't really sand it that much, so you can see some of the wood grain, especially with this nice satin finish. But other than that, they're almost identical to each other. The biggest difference between these two, of course, is the price point. For the pine one, I used a 1x2 by 6 foot long select pine board, so it was already pre-sanded and nice and smooth, so the work was minimal, but the board cost $7.68 before tax. If you add on all the extras, this cross right here probably cost around $8.50 to $9. Whereas this one made out of cedar fence pickets, I only paid $2.68 for the fence picket and was able to get 3 crosses out of 1 fence picket. So that means this thing right here was less than $1 in lumber and probably altogether about $2, maybe $2.50 to make it. So this was definitely worth the little bit of extra work that I had to put into it. Let me know in the comments below which one would mean more to you as a project, a little less work or a little less cost. We work on a new project every week, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thank you very much for watching, be safe, and have a great day.